It's very humbling to be asked to come here. I appreciate everybody coming out. I want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, give you my sincere thanks. I am a Christian, and one of my favorite verses is Isaiah 9:6. Unto us a child is given, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. Summed up in three things. That's Jesus Christ in his crib, Jesus Christ on the cross, and Jesus Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Amen. My job here is not really to teach people about gun control. My job is to bring honor and glory to the Lord Jesus Christ. And by doing so, he allows me to teach people the evils of gun control. There's a thing on the internet, it's called Gun Control Kills. And if you don't believe me, if you look up Mao Zedong, Stalin, Lenin, the Khmer Rouge, the dude in North Korea, whatever that dingbat's name is, okay, Cambodia. When you look at all these governments that implemented gun control like Hitler, just those few that I mentioned, over 53 million of their citizens were murdered because they gave up their guns. I will give up my gun when they pry it from my cold dead fingers. I literally mean that. And I've said a long time ago, if I see a UN helmet coming through my neighborhood, I am going to go see Jesus, but I'm going to send him to hell first. Okay? We have got to stand up for our freedoms. The price of freedom is constant vigilance. I don't want to see what happened in like Egypt and these places happen here in America. Because when it happens here, we're not going to step out in the street with a beer bottle and a stick and throw it. We're going to be stepping out with 30-06s, M1 Grands, M1As, AR-15s. It's going to be nasty. The largest army in the world is the hunters here in America. And these people say guns cause crime. They do. How come when there's a gun show, everybody walks out alive? There's enough guns in there to kill everybody 1,000 times over. I've been to dozens and dozens, and I've always come out alive. These things that happened with the shootings in the theater here recently, I posted on Facebook. Have you ever noticed there's no mass shootings at a gun range where everybody is armed to the teeth and ready? Alan Gottlieb, the founder of the Second Amendment Foundation, wrote a book, More Guns, Less Crime. And what I think is really, really good, who knows about Lawton Mustard? Okay? Lawton Mustard are professors at the University of Chicago. The liberal anti-gunners funded a very good, in-depth, I think it was 2-year, study across the nation on gun control to prove once and for all the bad thing is the gun. We get rid of the guns, we have utopia. That's what they thought. And that's what they said. You take a professor, he gets funding, what does he do? He's a researcher. That's how he got his PhD. He researched. So they go through and they come out with this. The anti-gunners did not like the results. Across the nation, across the counties, where there are right-to-carry laws for people like you and I to carry a gun, crime goes down. Rape, down. Murder, down. Armed assault, down. Armed robbery, down. Uh-oh. What happened to the theory? Got shot all to pieces, and their methodology of research was so meticulous, they couldn't even attack the methodology of their research. Now then, here they come out with this big study. Now they're going, uh-oh, now what do we do? I'm here to tell you, even on the authority of God's Word, gun control is stupid. Now, I've been in Sunday school class, and I've had these teachers tell me, we don't need guns. Well, wait a minute, what did Jesus say about this? Well, guns ain't mentioned in the Bible. Weapons are. I said, let's go back to the Old Testament and let's look at the story of Lot. Okay? when they come and did some kidnapping, the Bible says that, is it Abraham? Armed, trained men. When he got his nephew back, he didn't mess with family. Okay? He armed, trained men. Not only did they have weapons, they were trained how to use them. It doesn't say they started an army. It doesn't say that they trained them. It says that they were already trained. They went and did it. Now then, here's the good thing I like about the Bible. When these people started doing that, I asked them, are you Christian? Yeah, okay. Do you believe the Bible? Absolutely. Okay. What does God say about this subject? I like to take them to when Nehemiah was rebuilding the walls. I love that story because it says he went and got letters from the king for safe passage, got the bill for the materials so they could rebuild the wall, and they went to work. But it also says this. They were in danger, so they posted guards out there. Was that good enough? No. We posted some more. Wasn't good enough. Then the Bible tells us this. They worked with a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other. Well, now we got God's people carrying swords again. Let's look at Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. You know the story. The temple guard and the Romans come out there. And Jesus says, why are you coming against me here? Did I not teach you daily in the temple? And here you come out with your swords and your clubs? This is the temple guard. This is God's people come out there with swords and clubs. Who's with them? A centurion and 100 Roman soldiers. The Roman soldiers recognized the right for a slave's self-defense. And they had weapons. They had clubs and they had knives. Uh-oh. God's people again. Now we got the temple guard for God's house carrying weapons. Here's what I love more than anything else. You'll hear a preacher say, Peter grabbed a sword from a soldier and whacked off Malchus's ear. That ain't what the Bible says. And I had a guy that from Dallas Theological Seminary over West Park Baptist said that. I went, what? Wait a minute, Dick. The text said that Peter, having a sword, drew it and cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant. And Jesus told him, Peter, return your sword to your sheath. Now is not the time. This is why I came. Now's not the time, Peter. So Peter put his sword in his sheath. Uh-oh. Christ's disciple. Hand-picked, hand-trained by Jesus himself, carrying a sword. Now let's go a little bit farther. When did Jesus send out his disciples? Send them 2 by 2. What did he tell them to take? Nothing. Don't take money. Don't take extra clothes. Don't take all this other stuff. I'm going to provide. But now I tell you, if you don't own a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Uh-oh. What did Jesus just tell his disciples? You ain't got a weapon? You better get one. Now, if we're disciples of Christ, and I like that term better than saying Christian because everybody's Christian. I'm sorry. But as a disciple of Christ, I'm a Bible believer. If I'm to be Christ-like, and Jesus said, you need to have a weapon, I think we ought to have a weapon. I've got my Glock on. My wife said, you want to wear that gun? No. You think they'll be offended? I don't care. But these people support gun rights. I don't think they'll be offended. Here's the point. And I used to have Tim Hutchison when he was sheriff in my Sunday school class at West Park. I carried a gun in Sunday school. Another friend of mine had a gun. Well, there's 3 or 4 that support a gun. And the teacher's wife came up to me. Her name was Lily. She was the secretary for Sam Paulson, the pastor. She said, Mark, do you carry a gun everywhere? Yes, Lily, I do. Don't you think that's crazy? No. I tell you what I think's crazy. She said, what's that? I said, not carrying a gun. I think it's crazy. And I said, I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I don't want to shoot somebody. I really don't. But if it's, I have to shoot somebody to protect my wife, my children, if I have to shoot someone to protect you, I'll do it. Nowhere in the Bible is a man condemned for protecting his wife and his children or his fellow brothers and sisters. Matter of fact, he's commanded to do it. You are required to provide for your family. That word provide just don't mean a ham sandwich and a glass of milk. That's love, that's protection, that's shelter, that's nurture, that's encouragement. That is protection. So, for these people to tell you, well, if you're a Christian, you need to depend on God for your protection. Okay, that's good. God provided me a Glock. God provided me an AR-15 and an M1 Garand and some other sort of things. My motto is this: 9mm may expand, but 45 don't shrink. Okay? Now then, so as a Christian, you'll hear these people saying you need to rely on God. Well, I'll pray. Okay, while you're praying, here's what I want you to do. I want you to leave your house unlocked and put a sign out front. I'm praying God to protect me. The door's unlocked. God, that's crazy. Yeah, you're right. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, that is crazy. If you don't lock your door, what's going to happen? She said, well, somebody just come in. I go, yeah. If you're not willing to protect what's yours, and God's commanded you to provide for your wife and children and your fellow man, He wrote, there's no greater love than for a man to die for his brother. Now, He wrote that for a reason. We have a big responsibility as men. And I tell you what I love more than anything else. When you look at the statistics over the last 10 years of gun sales, it's like an exponential curve. I love it. Do you know, out of this curve right there, do you know who is the greatest segment of America that's buying guns and getting gun carry permits? Women. Okay, men. We need to keep our pants on. We need. I like it. Now, my wife didn't care for me having guns. Had them ever since we were married. When we were dating, I got a .357 Magnum that I had, and I told her to shoot. When we got married, I bought her a .38 Special. I got my gun carry permit as soon as they changed the legislation and where it said from shall issue or may issue to shall issue. Okay? I went ahead and I got my permit. I kept trying to get my wife to get hers. I don't need it. Don't need it. You got all kinds of guns. I don't need it. Don't need it. Remember the Loveless boy down here at the coast station, at the corner of Kingston Pike and Lovell Road? Got murdered using a phone for what? A $1 bill and a wristwatch. Got her thinking. Do you remember the Dots down in Village Green? Not too long after that. They come home and surprised some burglars. They laid them on the floor, shot them in the back of the head, execution style. Could I get somebody to go get me just a little bit of coffee? Just black, please, about that. I'm sorry, I've got a problem. It's okay. A little bit of a... Anyway, now she comes to me. You know, I think maybe I want my own gun. Hey, an excuse to buy a gun? Thank you, Jesus. Here we go. Sports Unlimited. Next day, got her a gun. Got her signed up over a gun crash course. Get her handgun carry. Bought her a .380 because she wanted something small. A few months down the road, I need a pulse. that 380, that's not good enough. I'd really be more comfortable if you had something just a little bit bigger. Thank you. She said, well, this is good enough. I go, honey, it's just not as dependable and reliable. Let's go look at a Glock 26. Oh, man, I can buy another gun. So I go back to Sports Unlimited. I was the UPS driver. I'd already delivered one. She don't know that I'd already ordered it. Don't nobody tell her. I'm allergic to buckshot and copper jacket hard points. So I take her in, and I say, I want to look at a Glock 26 for my wife. She gets it. Okay. So I said, this is more dependable. We can have this thing loaded up. You've got 10 rounds in the magazine, one in the chamber. All you got to do is squeeze the trigger. You can take it, throw it up against the wall, it ain't going to go off. Much safer. It's got more power than the 380. I'd feel better with you. Okay, you can buy it. Good. You buy it. Down the road, my wife is understanding this. It's good to have a cell phone. But when you need the cops, if you need them in seconds, they're minutes away. Okay? So my wife understands the need for self-protection because who takes care of the children when you got a stay-at-home mom? She's homeschooling 3 boys. When she goes somewhere, she has to take them everywhere. Don't mess with that mama bear. You will die. Okay? Here recently I bought another gun. Got her one for Christmas. Before my son went to Iraq, his first tour, I bought all 3 of my boys a 22 target pistol. She said, I thought I told you not to buy any more guns for yourself. I said, I didn't. It's for my children. She said, well, honey, your boys are going to get all these guns. I go, but my son's going into a combat zone. If something was to happen, at least he knows I loved him enough that I got him a gun. Okay. That flew. So that's good. Any excuse I've got to go buy a gun and ammo, I will. Because I'd rather buy guns and ammo before it becomes buy guns and ammo. Okay? So you think about that for me and you think it can never happen in America. I'm 56 years old. I started looking at stuff from a young age because my father was involved in politics, my grandfather, my uncles and aunts. I broke the mold in my family. Who's the black sheep of their family? I'm the black sheep of mine. My grandfather voted Democrat because he's a Democrat. All of my uncles voted Democrat because grandfather was a Democrat. I go into the military. I voted for Jimmy Carter because he said he was going to do all this grand stuff for the national defense. I go in the Army as a paratrooper. And then this idiot, I call Jimmy Carter an idiot. If anybody don't understand that, he's stupid. He started cutting all the defense weapon systems that's going to help keep me alive on the battlefield. I come out of the Army 4 years later. And if you're a paratrooper, here's the way it goes. You've got QRF, Quick Ready Force. Your stuff is packed and ready to go within 2 hours. You got the initial ready force. If you're not on QRF, you're on IRF. You've got 6 hours before you go. And then the rest of the people that jump out of airplanes, up to 24 hours. They can put people on the ground in an entire division within 24 hours anywhere in the world. Okay? That's readiness. That's prudence and that's smart. Why aren't we just as smart here in America? How many of you women have been told or have heard, if a rapist comes to you, submit? Just submit. How stupid is that? I'm going to tell you how stupid it is. It's ignorance and it's straight out of the pits of hell. That does not come from God. If the military and the police and you're in training, they tell you, if you meet resistance, you resist back. The more you resist, it increases your chances of living. Now, if they're teaching the military and the police to resist, why aren't they teaching us to resist?
Because they want you to be a good victim.
They want you to be a sheeple. That's right. Okay? Now then, some people call me right-wing radical extremist. I tell them that's not really the proper term. I tell them I'm crazy. When somebody says you're crazy, I go, yes, I am. Now, what do you want to discuss now? Nobody's going to argue that I'm not crazy. But I will not compromise. I'll look and see what's happened over the last 30, 40 years. The more we compromise, the worse it gets. You think I'm kidding? National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act, TSA, NSA. Get on a plane and go somewhere, you're either going to get radiation or you're going to get groped. It's that simple. I like Senator Rand Paul. He goes through, the thing goes off, and they said, we're going to pat you down. No, you're not. Yeah, we are. No, you're not. I'm a U.S. Senator. You better not lay one hand on that. Now, he had to miss that flight and take the next one, but they didn't pat him down. We need to get rid of TSA. Amen. We need to repeal the Patriot Act. There's a lot of stuff. Now, let me tell you, here's the problem. A lot of people ain't going to bring it down to where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to tell you the problems we got right here and what we're dealing with. Our government is not a government, it's a corporation. Okay? When they talk about democracy, we are not a democracy. We are a representative republic. We need to tell these people we know the difference. We need to let them know, like Jimmy Duncan. He's well informed now. He don't like it. He quit responding to me. But
most of us do.
If you look around us, everything is by contracts. Our courts are private corporations for profit. The police force, the sheriff's office, they are private corporations. You go, you're nuts. Oh, yeah? Rod Class over in North Carolina just won that lawsuit not long ago. North Carolina State Police or Highway Patrol pulled him over, wrote him a ticket. Rod turned around and sued the guy. Went into court and proved that they were a private corporation. You think he paid that ticket? No. Okay. They are a private corporation. Here's what happens. He sues me for being ugly. They take that court case, they securitize it, they bundle it, and they sell it on the stock market. If someone gets arrested, they securitize it, they bundle it, and they sell it on the stock market. They're making millions and millions and millions of dollars off these court cases. They're making millions off the prisoners. Our federal prison system is a private corporation. Their headquarters is right down here in Nashville, Tennessee. They're making millions and millions of dollars on these people sitting in jail. We got people in jail, like almost 2 million people. And the vast majority of them don't need to be there. And here's what happens. If someone is arrested, you're trained in the academy to pile on charges. If you get arrested for being ugly and they put 20 other charges with it, they try to get you to play down to something. Because the bond money they get, the securitization of the court case itself, 97% is plea bargain. 97% of court cases. Civil lawsuits. Who trusts an attorney? Anybody in here trust an attorney? Anybody in here an attorney? An attorney is an attorney at law. He's not practicing real law. He's taught rules, regulations, and codes and procedures. An attorney, if you ask him, who is your first duty to? Who's his first duty to? To the court. When you look at an attorney, and I've got a whole bunch of information that I'm going to give you all to back up what I say. I'll need somebody down the road to give me a 64 gigabyte USB key, and I'll give you all every CFR, all the United States codes, the law dictionaries like Black's and Bouvier's, the congressional records. I'll give all this stuff to you because I've got like 59 gigabytes of this stuff. Okay? So you can look it up. But it tells you that when there's a conflict, he has to sell you out and side with the court. It's written in there. I've got a friend, we were down in Anniston, Alabama, doing a seminar for my business. And we went into this, I don't know what you call it, consignment place where people bring stuff and sell. We go in there and in this book rack, we find a first-year law book, administrative law. And we go over to about page 7 or 8, and here's what we find. An attorney must learn to be a good actor in the courtroom. If he cannot be a good actor in the courtroom, he will not make it as an attorney. And then it goes on to tell you that his first duty is to the court, and it's not about justice, that most of the time, the opposing attorney, the judge, and your defense attorney will go have lunch, they'll play golf, they'll go bowling, and decide the outcome of your case. And then they get into the courtroom, and they act it out. It's right in their law book that this is what's going on. And you think, well, wait a minute. We've got the best justice system in the world. We do. They're private corporations for profit. Every judge in Tennessee is supposed to have a Form 61. He's getting paid by the state. Yet, there's court costs, conflict of interest. The opposing attorney, the defense attorney, the judge is all part of the same bar association. Private fraternity. Okay? Now let's relate this to guns. How many people are in jail because they were carrying a firearm? I wanted to bring all that stuff because I could put it on a computer and flash it on the thing. Here's the thing. Somebody borrowed my stuff and I didn't get it back in time. But if you look up the definition of firearm in CFR 27, it's not talking about a pistol or a rifle. It's talking about a sawed-off shotgun that's less than 18 inches. It's talking about a machine gun. It's talking about a nuclear device. Wait a minute. And they're prosecuting people for having a firearm? And they're carrying a .38 special or something? That's not a firearm. Even by their definition, it's not a firearm. We need to educate ourselves. We need to go and get a copy of the sheriff's bond, his oath of office, and the contact information to file a claim on these bonds. Who is there to protect us? The sheriff is. That's who we need to work through. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about okay, let's do the Dick Act first. The Dick Act was passed in 1902, and it boils down to this. This was passed to prevent any gun control laws from being passed. And in the Dick Act it says that this cannot be repealed. It was passed by the House and the Senate, signed by the President, entered into law, and in the Federal Register. Here's what's happening today. So many of these laws are not laws. They're House joint resolutions or they're whatever. Did you know that before they can pass something, it's supposed to be read 3 times in its entirety? 3 times. Okay, there you go. So this stuff gets passed, we waive reading of the bill. Boy, I'd like to see somebody say something. No, can't do that. We need it read in its entirety.
3 times.
3 times. If the stuff was read 3 times in its entirety, all this fluff and stuff would get kicked out. It's supposed to be passed by the House. It's supposed to be passed by the Senate. And if there's a difference in the wording, it's supposed to be reconciled and then sent to the President to be signed and entered into the Federal Register. so much of the United States Code is not properly passed. Yes.
Isn't the House the only one who can introduce legislation and not the Senate?
Correct. All spending bills have to be introduced into the law originating from the House. But the DIC Act is there, and I just learned about it this year. There's so much that we're ignorant about. There's a difference between being stupid and being ignorant. I was unaware that I was unaware. Now that I know that I'm unaware, I'm trying to correct that. That's why I've got the CFRs, I've got the United States Code, I've got the congressional record. These things is something that we need to where we can say, hey, listen, here's where you have violated your own rules, regulations, and codes. Your oath of office, you need to uphold your oath of office. Do you all realize that if every public servant, every politician, every sheriff, every deputy, every chief of police, if all these people obeyed their oath of office, how much of our problems would just be instantly solved? Okay? Let's look at the Second Amendment. It says that it shall not be infringed. What part of infringed don't you understand? Here's the thing, when you look it up, it says that it means to encroach. If you look up encroach, it means to take a little at a time. Our forefathers were so keen on the Bill of Rights, especially the Second Amendment, the only one that was passed unanimously, that they said, this is so sacred to protect our God-given rights that you can't even take just a little bit at a time. What had they been doing for the last?
Taking a little
bit at a time.
Yeah, they get hunters to argue with the people who own assault rifles. They get the pistol owners to argue with the assault rifle and the hunter people. It's crazy. They're totally mixed up the whole thing.
So I'm going to give you some stuff. Handling objections is what I call it. We need gun control for the children. We need to protect the children. What term do they normally say? We need to do it for the kids. Oh, yeah. I've never seen a baby goat handle a gun. What do you mean? Get it all the time. What do you mean? Well, you just said do it for the kids. The definition of a kid is a baby goat. Only in recent years did they change it to include our children. Why did they do that? Because of democracy, because of the corporation. If you look on a sheriff's badge, it's the agricultural seal. Cattle, chattel collateral. If they can make you think that your child is nothing more than an animal, they've then got you 3/4 staked. So if somebody says kid, I go, oh, I didn't know you had baby goats. Well, I don't. I've got a boy and a girl. Oh, you just said you had 2 kids. Well, I was talking about my children. I said, well, God don't talk about them that way. We were created in the image of God. Nowhere in my Bible does it say that Jesus Christ was a baby goat. I get offended when somebody calls one of my children a kid. I let them know up front, I don't have any baby goats. My children are not chattel collateral for a corporation. They're not liable for their debt. They created their own debt. Okay? So that's my starting point. Do it for the children. Oh, going to make children safer. I took my children out when they turned 5 years old. And I taught them to use a gun. I taught them to shoot a pistol. I let them shoot a rifle. We started with a little tiny 22 long rifle. Put up a 2x4. Hit that 2x4. Kick it. They know it's hard. Let them shoot that little 22 and it zips right through a 2x4. Put 2 together and it zips right through 2. All right, children. You've got to understand when you pick up a gun, the potential for damage is there. You keep that gun up and down range. You keep your finger out of the trigger well and off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. You know your target and what's beyond it. Once you pull that trigger, You're responsible for that bullet no matter where it goes. When we go to the gun range, take all 3 of my boys, from my house in Farragut all the way to Oak Ridge to the range, they had to tell me these safety rules and all the others that I taught them. I'd start with the youngest, go to the oldest. And we kept going around and around till they got them out, then we'd do it again. We could go through it 3 times by the time we got to the gun range. I'd rather be standing on the gun range with one of my 3 boys on either side of me than anybody else, because I know I'm not going to get accidentally shot. There is no such thing as an accidental discharge. That is a misnomer. It's an unintentional discharge. There ain't no accident. Guns were made for a purpose. We need to respect them. We need to properly use them. And we do need to protect them. Okay? Militia. Who is the militia?
The people.
The people.
George
We the
Mason.
people.
If you look at it, it's able-bodied people. Everybody. Here's my theory on crime control. If every law-abiding American, whether it's a man or a woman, carried a gun, every place they went, our crime rate would be so low, the liberals would have to go get a job.
Sounds good to me.
Okay? Case in point, these things where you've got mass shootings. Whether it's in the theater, whether it's anywhere. There's a little website on the internet. It's called Stick Death. It's got these little stick figures. You know what a stick figure is? This little thing like this. One of my favorite ones is there's people lined up in a bank. There's about 12 of those little stick figures in there doing this, that, and the other inside a bank. And here comes in one, pulls out a gun, and says, "Stick 'em out." Everybody jumps to the side, they pull out a gun, bang, 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 bang. Here's this little stick figure laying on the ground bleeding. Everybody else just goes back to what they're doing. They get back in line and transact business. To me, that's freedom. I wouldn't want to be in a bank and have to do that. But if I'm in a bank and that happens, I would have no problem doing that. I'm willing to die for you. How many of you is willing to die for me? Okay? We have to be able to get through our mind. Things are going to get bad. This corporation don't want to relinquish their power. These elitists think that they know what's best for you. They want you to go out here and work 45, 50, 55 hours a week. They want your wife to go work 45 or 50 hours a week. They want your children in public school. How many have seen the book by Charlotte Iserberg called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America? Talks about the change agents and the facilitators. And if you're not doing what we want you to do, you're targeted for reprogramming. If they don't work, who's targeted for reprogramming? The parents. Well, needless to say, we homeschooled. We started out with our son in Farragut. And it didn't last long. My wife, she just homeschooled. And then when they got older, we put them at Berean Christian School for high school. Here's what I like about a Christian school. They're in there, and the guy's teaching in history about the Vietnam War. Mentions an M16 and shows a picture. My son don't let nothing get by him. My son has more mental knowledge. When he was at age 9, I had to quit arguing with him. I just couldn't do it. Hey, my dad's got some AR-15s just like that. You know what the teacher says? Do you think he would allow you to bring one to show class? When my son comes home and tells me that, yes! Thank you, Jesus! So,
Showtime!
I take it in there, and I tell that teacher, well, listen, this is not a cheap rifle. This has got a match barrel, H-bar. I said, this is an expensive gun. I'm trusting you with it. If something happens to my gun, you're going to pay for it. Okay. So he takes it, they show it, he keeps control of it. At the end of the day, I go back, pick up my children, and I get the gun. Down the road, they're studying World War II. They talk about them $1,000. Hey, my dad can stop him. You think your dad let you bring that? So he takes them $1,000. Here's the point. When I was in school, usually on Thursdays, since I didn't work on Thursday, I used to throw some guns in the trunk of my old beat-up, banged-up Corvair that I Bob used. And we'd go out to like borderlines, and we'd go somewhere. Yes. And we'd hardly shoot. Now then, nobody thought about taking a gun and going and shooting anybody. There was several of us. I can remember one day, my shop teacher, Mr. Brown, told him that I bought a new gun. Now you gotta understand, I'm only 16 years old. I bought a Ruger Super Blackhawk. You know what a Super Blackhawk is? It's a .44 Magnum. The reason I bought it is I had a new model Blackhawk. It was a .357 Magnum. I said, hey, I bought a .44. Hey man, can I see it? Yeah, it's out the car. School's out. Before I left, he come out there and he looked at the gun. We put it back, stuck in the trunk. Went to like Borderlands High School, do some target shooting. Today, if that was to happen, he'd get fired. I'd get expelled. When we was in shop, we used to pull out our knives and whittle. We had safety lectures. Before you could use any piece of equipment, you had to score 100% on the test of safety, or you didn't get to use the table saw or the router or the planer. It said whittle. Well, that happened today. You'd get fired, students get expelled. How did we go from where we used to carry a pocket knife all the time when I was in school to where you can't now?
We went to get him out the other day. My 16-year-old daughter wanted to buy her boyfriend a pocket knife, and she couldn't buy it. I had to show my ID before we could purchase a pocket knife with a blade that long.
When I was in high school, I went to buy a BB gun. I was 17. It was a department store like Walmart or Kmart. It was called Tri-State. I worked at Giant Food Market. I went over there to buy a BB gun. I was only 17.
Shoot you out of it.
Came by. I said, why? Store policy. Store policy. You got to be 18. What? 18 to buy a BB gun? So I go home and I tell my dad, hey, I went in to buy a BB gun. They wouldn't let me. He goes, man, I ain't going to tell you what he said. The first order was bull. And he stopped on his way home from work one time and got the BB gun I wanted. Okay? I wanted the BB gun where I could go downstairs in the basement and piddle. Okay? Just, it was that simple. I wasn't shooting birds or I wasn't shooting dogs or cats or whatever. But it was store policy. There was no law that says that. I went to buy some golf balls. And I went to the same guy and told him I wanted a dozen of the golf balls. And he put them out there. I said, do I got to be 18 to buy these too? He looked at me and goes, well, why would you have to be 18 to buy golf balls? I said, why would I have to be 18 to buy a BB gun? Oh, yeah, I remember you now. Keep your golf balls. I'll go somewhere else now. We can fight back. You remember Blockbuster Video?
Yeah.
Used to be one down here in Farragut. I went there to rent a video, sign on the thing, no weapons. Okay? Law-abiding citizen. I take mine off, I stick it back in the car. I was their UPS driver, so I knew the manager. So I went in there and asked for him. He'd come out of his office and I told him, here's why I am not renting any more videos from you. It's your sign right there. I jumped out of airplanes for your rights and mine. You have just violated mine. I want nothing to do with you. And I walked out. We did a letter writing campaign, and Blockbuster Video changed their minds. When corporate gets thousands of letters from pissed off gun people, they go, time to change. Who remembers Rosie O'Donnell? She was the spokesperson for who? Kmart. She come out lambasting the gun owners and guns. Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, Jews for Preservation of Firearms Ownership, the NRA, the Gun Rights Alliance, and a bunch of others. With email back and forth, and we come up with a letter, and we flooded Kmart, not only the CEO and the president, but the board of directors. Here's why we are not going to buy anything from your store. They were stubborn. You got letters back. We don't care what you do. We're not changing our policy. We're not getting rid of Rosie O'Donnell. How many stores did Kmart have to close before they got rid of Rosie O'Donnell? A whole bunch. They lost millions of dollars because they pissed off a gun owner. James Sasser, remember him? Yeah. Okay. He come up and he says, I am against gun control. I went to a thing. Now, I'm not, like I said, my family was Democrat. When I got out of the Army, I was campaigning for Reagan. Hard in him. My family thought I was nuts. It's okay. That argument's over. I'm crazy. James Sasser, Al Gore. I told him, I said, listen, y'all made a mistake. Remember the sign, Jim Sasser? You know what I used to do? I used to go up and down Pellissippi Parkway, and I took out a knife, and I'd cut either side of that sign, and it said, Jim Ass. I am serious about my rights. I had somebody that told me that was unethical. I said, I think it's unethical to have a gun ban. Not only that, it's unlawful. Do you understand the difference between what's legal and what's lawful? Anything that's lawful for me is lawful for you and everybody else. What's legal for me may not be legal for you unless you pay the fee and get a license and the bribe money to make yourself legal. For instance, a pharmacist can sell drugs. He's got a license. Okay? There's things that are lawful and there's things that's legal. Here's the problem. Too many things that are illegal are victimless crimes. There is no injured party. Okay? If I run a red light and I don't hit anybody, who's the injured party? Is there any property damage? No. So there's really no crime. And here's something I learned not long ago that really ticked me off. This is a side note, it has nothing to do with gun control. Did you know if you get a traffic ticket, there's a $10 arrest fee in there? Did they tell you that you was arrested for running a red light or a stop sign or speeding on the interstate? No. I think, anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Okay, let's get back on the topic of gun control. We need to get these people to think because they don't. They absorb what the news media tells them, and we know they're not on our side. Today on the radio show, I related when I was a UPS driver. I was delivering at the Farragut school system up there. There's Farragut High School, Middle School, and Intermediate School. One of the principals in there has got a PhD, and I went in to deliver. And the lady behind the counter tells me, I feel safe. Feel safe? And she said, I feel much safer today. Well, why? We got our new signs out on the door, you know, you can't carry a gun in here. I went, okay, that's good. I said, this is after Columbine now. I said, did you stop to think that Columbine had the same signs on their doors? Now people start rolling out different offices. Principal comes out. He's kind of listening to see who's talking. And she said, well, no. She said, we got a full-time deputy up here on campus. I said, yeah, I know it. I said, did you stop to think that Columbine had police on their campus all the time? She said, well, I didn't know that. I said, well, let me ask you another question. Do you realize that if I was a student here and I wanted to do that, I would take my gun, I'd walk up behind that cop, and I'd shoot him in the back of the head. I'd unholster his Glock, and I'd take his 2 extra magazines. Now I've got a gun that's got 15 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 2 extra magazines with 15 rounds each. Now I've got 46 rounds of 40 caliber hollow points that's going to allow me to shoot 45 or 46 more people in addition to what I brought. She said, "You're scaring me." I said, "Good. I want to scare you." I said, "But did you even stop to consider that?" She said, "No." I said, "I'm going to prove to you that Columbine didn't happen because of a gun. The problem was gasoline." Now, everybody gets closer. They don't want to know what's going on. I said, "Here's the progression. Here's this kid. He breaks into his grandfather's house. He steals the gun. He steals the ammunition. Steals the guy's van, whatever it was, and he's headed to school. He ain't got enough gas. He has to stop and buy gasoline. So he stops and buys gasoline. Goes to the school, sets off the fire alarm, and then starts shooting people. So he committed 5 crimes before he pulled the first trigger. I said, "Did you all stop to think about that?" No. So I said, "Do you realize that if we was to ban gasoline, that boy couldn't have bought gasoline, put it in that car, go to school and shoot people?" The principal. "You can't blame the gasoline for what that boy did." I went, "You're right. And you can't blame the gun." And everybody's laughing at the principal. He's mad, makes everybody go back to work, and he tells me to leave the school. But I got him thinking. The next day I go in there, and the girl behind the counter says, "I've never owned a gun, never wanted to own a gun, and now you've got me thinking, what kind of gun do I need to buy?" 2 days later, another woman in there said, "I want to buy a gun. What kind of gun do I buy?" Things that get them to thinking is what we need to do. When the Dots got killed down here in Village Green, laid them on the floor, shot them in the back of the head. When I'm delivering at Sports Unlimited the next day from UPS, the gun counter was full. People down here in Farragut that never had a gun, never wanted a gun, never even considered buying a gun, was in there buying a gun. And I loved to deliver them because I knew what was coming in and I knew what was going to be on sale. I went in there at the gun counter and there's people lined up. And here's this lady. Her husband is a dentist. Walks up to the guy behind the counter when it's his turn and she says, "I want to buy a gun." "Okay, what kind?" She said, "I don't care. I just want a gun and I want some bullets." "Do you want a shotgun, a rifle, a pistol?" "I don't care. Just sell me a gun and some bullets." He said, "Well, man, do you know the difference?" She said, "No, but sell me one." She didn't care at that point. One of her friends in her neighborhood has just been murdered. 2 people, husband and wife. She has now got her eyes open and realizes, if I've got a gun, by gosh, I can even the scope. And everybody's heard it. Jesus Christ created us, but Sam Colt made us equal. Okay? It's one of my favorites. Okay? So she's standing there, and I thought, this is intriguing. And I'm looking around, and there's professional people in there. You've got doctors, you've got attorneys, you've got business owners. You've got people that's wearing blue jeans, people that's wearing flip-flops and T-shirts. Now, it's hitting close to home. What do I do to protect myself? So that got them away. I would much rather be able to educate them than have a tragedy open their eyes. I hate to see anybody go through a tragic situation like that. Okay? I posted a picture on Facebook. By the way, I'm Mark Anthony on Facebook. If you want to see a lot of stuff posted that's educational, that's a good place to do it. I like to do it because there's so many liberals. if you want to know what's going on, you kind of make friends with them and they'll let you know what's going on. Okay? So I posted this thing and it's got a picture of a condom, a cell phone, mace, and all this other stuff, and a gun, and a knife. And it says, if your daughter is confronted by a rapist, which one of these will protect her the best? Ding, 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 ding. I posted one. Don't you love an AR-15 with pink on it? I think that is so cute.
I like the white
And
ones.
Barnhart.
I like the ivory white ones. Those are pretty.
Yes. Okay. So I posted this thing, and it's a teenage girl. And it says, you know, something like, her father leaves for work at 5 a.m. The mother leaves for work at 8 a.m. School is not in session. And she's here holding an AR-15 with the pink stock and full grip and says, do you want to break in on this girl? Okay? Things like that. I let it, behind the scenes, you get these messages that's not on the Facebook wall. Hey, Mac, where'd you get that picture? I go, I don't know. I just found it on Facebook and I copied it. Posted it all over. I've got a whole thing of these things. Okay? We need to educate people and we need to take a very strong stand. We need to communicate with our legislatures. We need to start letting them know, hey, wait a minute. The DICK Act says you can't pass gun control laws. The 10th Amendment says your jurisdiction, U.S. Congress, is the District of Columbia and the federal enclave ceded to you by the state. The 10th Amendment says we can tell you to shove your law, and that's what we need to do. We need to learn jury nullification. Jury nullification says that if he gets arrested for a firearm, that we can not only judge him, we can judge the law.
That's right.
And nullify it.
And nullify it. If it's contrary to the Constitution, it's null and void.
That's right.
Who gave a pompous ass, pardon my French, sitting in an office in the District of Columbia the right to dictate to you or me what we can and cannot use to protect ourselves? I call 911 government-sponsored dial prayer because when you need them in seconds, they're minutes away. Our responsibility, first and foremost, is we got to take accountability and responsibility for protecting ourselves. We need to let them know, I'll do it. I'll take the responsibility. I'm accountable for my own actions. I don't need you passing quote-unquote laws. And you notice they're not laws, they're bills. It's codes. They are a corporation. Tennessee is a corporation. It's a subsidiary of the other corporation. Knox County is a corporation that's subsidiary to the Tennessee State Corporation. Rules, regulations, and codes. We need to go back and restore the republic. A real law that's enforceable. There's statutes and statutes at large. Do you know the difference? Statutes at large pass constitutional muster. The others don't. Okay? So we got to educate ourselves on this. Okay? Anybody else? You got a question? Something you want me to address? Yes.
I'd like to know how many of the people that were in the gun store in their flip-flops and their professional suits, when a law is passed saying you have to give up your firearms, how many of them will march in step?
That's a good question. I don't know. I do know this. Back when I was a sheriff's deputy, they had a class for us, and this guy comes in from the FBI, and there's this map all across the nation, these little dots all over. We know where terrorist cells are. Here's that we do know. Question: why don't we throw them out? Oh, we can't do that. We'll offend somebody. What? We know there are terrorist cells and we don't deport them? Oh, we can't do that. We'll offend somebody. Okay.
Guess what? Let's offend them.
Yeah, that's my question. Who knows who Sheriff Arpaio is, or Arpaio?
Arpaio, yes.
He's my hero.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it when he went out and he rounded up all these illegal Mexicans, took them to the INS and said, "Here they are. Huh, we can't do nothing with them. Why? We've been told not to. Oh, okay. I'll take them myself." So we busted them to the border, made them walk across back into Mexico. We need to put pressure on our sheriff. We think about writing our legislatures. Here's the problem. I used to coach Farragut Little League Baseball when my boys was growing up. I coached 3 teams in 3 separate leagues for years. Jimmy Duncan one year, his son Zane, was on my team. Every Saturday morning I'd see him at the Farragut Little League field. Get a bite his ear off. After about the 3rd game or the 4th game, he'd see me coming. "Mark, you know I'm for your gun rights. You know I'm against abortion." I just want to make sure. Every Saturday, I'd wear him out. I'd wear him out.
Good.
Here's what he told me, though. He said, "Mark, when we get a letter from somebody in our district, we assume there's at least 7 other people that agree with you but will not write." He said, "Here's what happens. The people on the other side of the fence, they write every month. I hear from you once a year, and in this case, every week at the ball field." Okay? I learned something from that. We need to communicate with them. The senators, the representatives, our state senators, our state representatives. We need to write them every week. Yes?
I have a question about automatic weapons.
Uh-huh.
You were a sheriff's deputy,
Mm-hmm.
so I know they changed the law to make the sheriff has to respond within 15 days to your request, right?
Well,
Let me ask a further question about that. What is a typical reason that the ATF would say, "Oh, well, the sheriff agreed with it, so I will too"? Because the ATF wants a reason from the individual, right? Why they want one.
you got to understand this. When you apply for a Class 3,
Right.
it's a $200 stamp.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the passport picture, and they tell you it's going to take 6 months to do a background check on you.
Right.
So they wait 5 months and 29 days, run you through NCIC,
Right.
and then the sheriff either approves it or disapproves it. Okay? That's why I think we need to repeal the Hughes Amendment. It was passed illegally. There weren't enough people there. There wasn't a quorum, and it passed anyway. So there's another law in place that's not even a law, but is put into place illegally. Everybody in this room, I think, ought to be able to walk into Walmart and buy an M16 if they wanted to.
Of course.
There's nowhere in my Constitution that says anything other than that. And I can remember when I was growing up, I went into Lingard Hardware and I bought a 30-30 rifle. No background check. I went in, paid cash for it, and took it to the house. Okay? We used to mail order rifles. Okay? But what they've done is they crimp and go, okay, we can make money on this. If we ban a high-capacity magazine and still selling it for $10, we can get $90 for it. So, and the thing is, there is no money in America. When you read the congressional record, it'll tell you that it is a mere promise to pay in the future, that it's foreign currency. That's a side note. But back to your question, it's at the sheriff's discretion. That's the bad part.
Right.
Okay? And it's limited to, what is it, 1984 and back for full automatic weapons? But did you know
I thought you could have one made.
there's a fine line there? I'm not really sure on that
I think
because
that
I'm so
falls
much
under
in
who
the other
transfers
thing.
the work.
But here's the thing. Did you know that The government is supposed to supply us with military type weapons.
Yeah.
I want a saw.
Yeah.
You ever seen a saw fired? Man, that thing rocks. I'd like to have an M60 machine gun. I'd like to have an M249.
There you go.
Okay? Here's the point. We need to educate ourselves that we can educate others. Here's my challenge to you. Every day for the rest of your life, I don't care if it's just one man or one woman a day, educate them on something. Educate them on something. And go from there and try to get them involved. I've got a friend, I used to get his boys on Friday night. They'd spend the night. We'd go to Oak Ridge Sportsman's Association, Orsa. We'd go to the gun range. They'd go to church with me on Sunday morning, and I'd give them back to the parents. I did that to a lot of children. I had a man and a woman that absolutely thought only the military and police were to have guns. Yet they would allow their children to go with my children with me to the gun range. Teach them safety, teach them how to properly do it. You get a 9-year-old boy that used to be able to shoot a water pistol to get out there and take a semi-automatic 22 and go and put 30 rounds down range as quick as he can do it. I tell him, empty that thing out as quick as you can. That boy is excited. For the next week when he's at home, what does he want to talk about?
Guns.
I went to the range with Marc McConnell. I went with Brandon's dad. Or me and Brandon did this at the range. Okay? His family. It took 7 years. 7 years, people. Now the boys are older teenagers. The dad comes to me and says, do you mind if I go to the range with you? Yes. Take him to the range. He shoots a couple of guns. He goes, I can understand why my boys were excited. On the way home, he says, I've been giving a lot of thought to what my children have been telling me. I think it's okay for you to have guns. You know what I told him? It's not okay. It's a God-given right for me to be able to use a gun to protect my family. The Constitution, and more importantly, the Bill of Rights, restrains the government from infringing on that. That's the key. Okay? So it takes, in that case, it took 7 years that he went from being only the police and military were to have guns to where it's okay, us people having guns. My neighbor, I've invited him to go to the gun range. I don't know how many times. That's just not my thing. That's just not my thing. He heard somebody in his backyard. Who does he call?
You.
Calls me. I go over there, and a dog had dug under the fence. He's out here scurrying around. Okay, no big deal. Open the gate, get the dog out, problem solved. Why didn't he call the police?
You're closer.
I'm next door and I've got to go. That's exactly what he said. Have you ever seen this picture on Facebook? It says, my neighbor does not have guns.
Yes.
And if you break in his house, I will respect his opinion and I promise not to use mine to stop you. I saw that somewhere on Facebook. Copy and paste it. And now it's posted on my wall somewhere. You think, yes?
Can you put on your tinfoil hat? With what's gone on with the last couple of shootings and everything, and them making out like it's ex-military and this, that, and the other, how much longer do you think we have before they really start putting the screws to us?
That is a tough question. Here's what I would suggest. Used to, I would never dream of taking a gun and putting it in cosmoline and putting it in a PCV pipe or whatever, doing it. But I'll tell you right now, I don't have all my guns in my house. I've got them scattered. I've got them in different places.
Where can we get cosmoline?
Well, if you don't have that, you can use Vaseline, it'll work,
I will.
okay? The main thing is something to protect it and seal it, or more.
You can buy waterproof too.
There you go.
It's sealed on
Well,
both
if you
ends.
just get, put them in, if you just seal them,
The end.
a PVC, 4-inch PVC pipe and seal both ends of it.
Yeah, put some silica gel in there too.
There's
to
air in
absorb
there,
the
and it's gonna
moisture.
sweat,
Yeah.
so you can make sure that you coated good with something. Just putting a thing of oil on it's not gonna be good enough, so you need something, okay? But to answer your question, with NDAA and all this other stuff, all it takes for a wake-up call for these people that don't believe you is tell them, you go to YouTube and punch in as a search, police brutality. Just pull it up. There's thousands and thousands of actual video footage of police brutality.
They changed the profile of police officers that they're hiring from people who are caring, giving was the old profile model of people they were looking for, and now they're looking for imperious type personalities, which are authoritarian by nature and control freaks, right? So that, I mean, they changed the profile, personality profile that they're looking for to be law enforcement in a lot of areas.
Here's the thing. Here's what I have encouraging about. There's 75 million gun owners that committed no crime today. 75 million gun owners makes a dang big army. Here's what the people at FBI and the U.S. Marshal's Office, the Treasury agents, they'll tell you this. Of all the registered guns and gun owners in America, we figure at least 10 to 15% will not give up their gun. What's 10% of 75 million? 7.5. That's 7.5 million people. Okay? If we've only got 7.5 million people here in America that says, I don't care what happens, you will not get my gun. Then when they try, like they did down in Katrina, they started taking up guns.
We also have a link to that on our webpage.
Okay? So don't think it ain't going to happen in America. Now, there's other people who's put legislation in place that if there is a national disaster, they can't go into your house and take your gun. However, when they've done away with posse comitatus, when they've done away with the Fourth Amendment, when they've done all this other stuff that they're doing, that they violated their own oath of office, their own constitution, okay? Here's what we need to realize. There may be a day coming that we're going to have to say, no more. And then if they do kick in your door, we're going to have to start shooting. If they break in on me and I can kill 3 or 4, or 10 or 20, and they break in his and he gets 2 or 3, and they break into his and he gets 2 or 3, and they break in Richards and he's got a lot of firepower and he gets like 12 of them. SWAT team comes in on this lane and she's pissed off and she gets 6 out of 12 of the SWAT team. How long is it going to be before they realize, wait a minute, we're going about this wrong? That's what it may come to. Y'all know about the FEMA camps.
Yes.
And they are manned, they're staffed, they're ready. I saw on Facebook a picture of this field of coffins down in Anniston, Alabama. I thought, okay. I go to Anniston anyway for classes for my carpet and rug cleaning business. So I go down there and I look. And sure enough, there they are. I pulled out my cell phone and I took some pictures. When I got back to the hotel, I put it up on Facebook. I was there for 3 days, and I didn't notice it. When I got home, they had been removed. Facebook removed my pictures of the coffins.
Yeah. There's censoring lots
Mhm.
of stuff.
Okay?
I put stuff out on
Why does the
Facebook
government
and it's
allow that?
censored within minutes.
Mhm.
Especially, there's a video out by, well, actually it was made by a Muslim. And it was about how Israel and the wall, the Wailing Wall, is very sacred to the Jews. And then it contrasted how the Temple Mount is being treated by the Muslims and how they
Right.
just, and I had that up for 1 day. I went back after that day and it was removed. They are censoring things
Be
that
brave.
Yeah, Big Brother is censoring things
Yep.
on the internet. You can just count on it.
Here's something we need to realize. Alan Godwin wrote a book. He's the founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. More guns, less crime. Okay? If you go to Switzerland, every male head of household over there is issued a full automatic rifle, ammunition, and he's required to fire it at least twice a year. Okay? What effect would that have on crime if we in America did that? Even Hitler did not invade Switzerland. Remember the Russian general that came to America? Remember the big 25 Fox bat? The pilot flew the coop, landed it in Japan or somewhere, and we went over there and took this thing apart and all this other stuff. There was a general that defected right after that. And he said that there was plans on the table to invade America. Russia has seriously considered coming into America and taking us over. You know what stopped them?
Everybody had a gun.
The gun owners. They realized there was too many people in America that had a gun that would use it against them. They said we would lose more than 5 million soldiers just to take the third from California inland for 1/3. They figured on losing 5 million Russian soldiers. Okay? Now you got people in Russia that's got enough sense to say, they got guns, we better leave them alone. Why don't we educate our neighbors, our politicians, the same way? If they can realize it, surely they can. We need to do that. Okay? We need to constantly be in communication. We need to make sure we communicate our sheriff. If I send a letter, it ain't going to have much of an effect. But what if he gets 100 letters? Hey, listen, here's your job, here's your oath of office, here's what you're supposed to do, and here's how you're violating it. It's your job to protect me. That is his job. Okay? Anybody else? Got anything else? Go ahead.
We did a project once where we called all the counties in Tennessee looking for a constitutional sheriff, and we only came up with 12 of them.
I'm surprised you found that.
Yeah. And Jones wasn't one of them.
Yeah, I know, JJ.
All the false flag stuff going on here, do you think that somehow relates to the UN Arms Treaty that they were voting on?
I'm sure of it.
You
Can
sure?
I prove it? No.
Yeah.
But they're looking for easy targets to turn about for the system. Okay? That includes guns. We're going to stack the charges. So I obey the law. I keep myself under the radar. I don't speed, don't run traffic lights, don't run stop signs. If somebody calls me and tells me I caught a speeding ticket, what do I do? I tell them, write them a check and pay it. Do the speed limit. Let them go after somebody else. Don't draw attention to yourself. We've got too much going on that we need everybody out here and not in a jail cell. Okay? So the system is corrupt, and it's not going to change until we change it.
Do you, oh, I'm sorry. go
I
ahead.
just have some information. You remember about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the militia in South Michigan,
The Huttery.
okay, were arrested supposedly for planning to kill a police officer. Well, they finally, after 2 years of sitting in jail, were given their day in court. The jury found them totally innocent of all charges. The charges were trumped up, and all their weapons that were confiscated were returned back to each and every member. Okay? Sir, I just want you to realize that in this game, it doesn't matter, the truth doesn't matter. What matters is they want to exercise control over us and scare us. Okay? And they will use whatever they have to to falsely charge you to get you out of the way. And that's how it works. Now, when it comes to a trial by your peers, usually they lose. But they got you out of the way for 2.5, 3 years. They caused a lot of, financial hardship for the families. But that's how they roll.
And don't ask for a jury trial, ask for a trial by jury. Two separate things. Trial by jury. Yes.
Do you think that there's an effort underway to get people, so to speak, into the system?
Absolutely.
The give you a record is to record you.
Absolutely.
So they want everybody recorded.
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
have centers set up in every state, fusion centers.
Yeah, the fusion centers.
That's what it's called.
Mhm.
And they, quote unquote, share information. The fusion centers were very bad.
Our state legislature didn't even know we had one.
Our lieutenant governor didn't even know we had one.
So even when they got the award from Big Sis.
Just
Didn't know
gotta
they
remember, when they pass stuff, if you watch it, they call this thing out, we waive the reading, they have a vote. They haven't read that stuff. That's another, we need to write all our state legislatures and state senators, the governor, lieutenant governor, tell them, you're supposed to have a reading of each bill 3 times. Make them read it.
Well, they all go, ooh, a federal ban, ooh, give me no more.
Yeah.
They don't even know what it's for. Oh, okay, we'll do it.
They prostitute.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, that's
They
what that is.
prostitute the state, and they prostitute us,
Yeah.
because we end up paying for it anyway.
We're the sheeple. Do you realize nobody in here has ever been paid for anything? If there's no money, how did you get paid? The Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. There is no money. If you read The Creature from Jekyll Island, it's talking about the setting up of the Federal Reserve System.
On zero.
And you read the congressional record, McFadden said, you can take liquor in Europe, ship it to America, take the bill, and have everyone who's getting it in America write their name on it. They can take that to the Federal Reserve, they print that money. That is the collateral, the signature. The shipment can be down, out at sea, and the Federal Reserve writes it off. You go buy a house, your signature creates the funds. It's your signature that's the collateral, not the house and the land. We need to go back to a republic. There's a lot. There's a lot of this stuff that interrelates. And it all ties to the only thing that's totally preventing them from just totally doing everything is free people owning guns.
Sorry, that's why they have to come.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you think it's fixable without another revolution?
Yes.
Really?
If we can get people to start buying guns in greater quantities and greater amounts of people buying guns.
Here's what we need to do. When you see 2 cops pulling somebody over, we need to have our own communication system. That we get out there, we've got our guns and video cameras. Cops don't like video cameras.
No.
Here's one thing, I'll give this to Tim Hutchison. Every cruiser now, that video cam stays on, and the lapel microphone is somewhere on the officer, and it's been recorded the entire shift.
Sorry.
The officer can't take it out, he has to open the trunk, and the shift supervisor takes that tape out of the machine. That part's good. However, that officer can cut the mic off. Oh, I'm sorry, battery must have died or something. There's gaps there. There's gaps in stuff. But if we have witnesses, they're not as apt to abuse someone.
But the sheriffs in Knox County aren't, I haven't seen even really bothering anybody around here. I've only lived here a couple of years, but it seems like the police are the ones who are always pulling people over.
The city police is bad.
Yeah.
Because they're a different mindset. When I was a deputy, I was sitting in the doctor's office, and there was a city cop there, and I asked him, what would you do if the city tells you you've got to go door to door and start picking up guns? I'd do my job. And I said, here's the thing. The vast majority of you city police would do that. do you understand the vast majority of the county, we would refuse? He goes, well, I just do my job. And I go, what are you going to do when they start shooting back? You know what his answer is? We'll go en masse and kill him. If we kill him, the rest of the people won't want to shoot back. I said, yeah, what are you going to do when you piss off a bunch of us veterans? And then we just start picking you off.
They're not on duty every minute of the day.
To respond to what he said, if you look in, hey Val, if you look in the Knoxville city budget, there's $1 million in there for outgo. Do you know where the income comes from? Traffic enforcement. That's why you have a better chance of getting out of a Knox County deputy ticket than you do a Knoxville city, because they need the money. It's in the budget.
Okay, here's the other thing. The budget is one thing. We need to write your council people and ask them for a copy of the CAFRA, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Tell them you want a certified copy. You go downtown to the courthouse and try and get it, but they'll give you the runaround. Somebody may give you a copy of the budget. The budget always has shortfalls. But that CAFRA shows where all the money is, and they got millions and millions. The state of Tennessee has, what is it, $33 billion in their CAFRA?
Yeah,
$33 billion.
that's a rainy day fund, they call it.
Okay.
And
Wait a minute. Do you realize that every time a judge sitting in a courtroom and they change judges, they start a new CAFRA? There's layers after layers after layers of the comprehensive annual financial report that actually shows that they've got millions and millions and millions. Stop and think for a minute. How many can remember growing up like me that said we need a 0.25% sales tax rate for the schools? Okay. I can remember when sales tax was almost nothing, and now it's 9.25%. Do you
they
realize
want more.
that if they took all that money and put it into education, we'd have more schools with PhDs teaching even kindergarten? So where's all these funds going? Okay? It can't be going for all this other stuff that they say. That's just like the Social Security. But anyway, we need to better educate ourselves and say, where is the CAFRA? Show it to me. Yes.
If they put all that money into the school system, we would still be turning out dumb children.
Right,
That's
It
true.
would not
because the model,
fix it.
because of Charlotte.
It would not fix it.
Yeah.
She dumbing down of America.
Okay.
I mean, think about this. I'm older school like you, I'm 58, okay? Kindergarten, first grade, phonics. They taught us how to take a big word, break it down with the, with it,
The McGuffey.
okay? Third grade, second grade, we got math and arithmetic facts, and we got multiplication and division in third grade. We could not graduate third grade unless we knew the timetables to
Backwards
12.
and forwards.
Right. Okay, kids today, they're not even given the basic tools to read and to do science, okay? Now,
That's on purpose.
it's
course it is.
exactly. it's
Give
on
them
purpose.
calculators for the
So
math
even
problem.
if we flood the school system with additional tax money, give them all their computers, we're not going to get a different result. You know, it's insanity, you know. Insanity is described one way. You keep doing the same thing and expect a different result.
Absolutely.
Okay? So until we fix that problem, our kids are not being educated.
Part of that problem is, because I used to be an educator, and I was an assistant principal, and I had 45 hours above a master's degree. And I was walking down the hall with our principal, who had a PhD in a middle school here in Knox County. And this little 6th grade English teacher was just teaching her heart out between concrete and abstract pronouns.
Yeah.
Are y'all thinking, what the hell's a concrete or abstract? And I said to Dr. Scott, Dr. Scott, do you know the difference between a concrete and abstract pronoun? He said, no, coach, I don't. I said, neither do I. We have 7 degrees between us. Why are we teaching it to 6th graders? You know what his answer was? It's on the test. Now,
We've been told to do it.
now, I'm a former educator, and I understand that we have to have some accountability to Nashville that we are doing the job. But the items that they put on the TCAP test do not measure what we need to survive day in and day out.
When I was in school, I was taught how to balance a checkbook and things like that. Of course, we taught our children. But the one thing that my wife was really good at when I was homeschooling was teaching them to think. Any one of my children now, when something comes up here and it's oddball, I'll give you an example. Can you all remember the old TV show, black and white, called Lawman?
Yeah.
Okay, John Russell, the sheriff, Peter Brown, the deputy. I had recorded some on the DVR, and my youngest son's 22, going to UT and ROTC. His in there was watching. And this thing come up, and he was like, somebody said something about everybody not being able to carry their gun in town. And I said, well, that's stupid. That quick, that's stupid. I go, why is that? He goes, if you take the guns away from the people, they can't defend themselves. The marshal's point was this: the people can keep their gun because they have a right to defend themselves. Remember the rifleman? Chuck Connors? You love that show? Same thing happened with this. It's talking about this sheriff, the marshal's out of town, and the rifleman has to go on a trip. He can't take him to place. So this other guy does, like the guy that fixes horses. What do you call him? The blacksmith. Anyway, he goes in there and he has the idea, we'll take away the guns from the people. I want to have control in the town. So he does, and they go in. First thing they do is they put a gun on him. Now he's stuck. Thank God, rifleman shows up in time. But back then, we were being taught, okay, wait a minute. We have a fundamental right of self-defense, and they were teaching that on TV. Now you look at it. It's watching Law and Order. Okay?
You got a gun, you're going to jail.
Yes.
What?
That's it. But in Elvis's case, this guy has an M11. It's a machine gun pistol. And there's a drive-by shooting, and he gets in court and takes this thing of bullets, turns it upside down, and it falls everywhere. Guns are bad. We need to get rid of all these guns. Get them off the street. Okay? See how we've gone, the progression? That's encroachment. Taking a little at a time.
Conditioning.
So we're not going to get it overnight. It's taken them years. It's probably going to take us years to get it back. But exactly back to your question, can we do it peacefully? I think so. If we go out every day and we educate someone, and then the next time we come in contact with them, we talk to them again, we invite them to come out and come to the meeting. We build a relationship with them. We educate them. We continue communicating, and we tell people. They say this, but when you read the actual law, here's what the law says. And now they've got this guy in jail for this. They violated, they charged him with the wrong thing, with the wrong crime. Until we can get to that point, they're going to continue just to railroad us. One more thing before we do that. Y'all haven't heard of Ron Branson, Jail for Judges? Oh! It's www.jail, the number 4, judges, okay? That's the website. And there's an initiative. It's, let's see, Judicial Initiative Accountability Law to hold judges accountable because they are the professionals in law. They're supposed to be a fair mediator, not to side with the prosecution, and in a lawsuit, not to side with the plaintiff. It's his job to administer fairly and equitable. And when he don't obey his oath of office, that's what he's trying to push. Put that judge in jail.
We need a jail for Supreme Court judges, too.
I agree.
You better start locally with Baumgartner before you go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Back to my concern of it being done peacefully. They've got a huge jump on us with Obamacare now being considered constitutional. Because in there, once we go to a single payer system, they are going to be able to withhold medical care based on the fact of whether you've got a gun or not.
That's right. Bullets are dangerous, therefore you
So,
shouldn't
you
have
know, I've
them
seen-
because they cause me
Don't tell them
money.
you gotta go. I like having my own business because they can send me all the paperwork they want, and I'll just send it right back to them. I am not buying Obamacare. It's unconstitutional.
It is.
We have a right to refuse it.
We need to not pay for it. That's
Okay.
what we need to do. Just don't pay.
Not in
The Supreme Court justice said exactly what it is. It is a tax.
Just don't pay it.
Taxes are supposed to be what? Apportioned,
equally.
okay? It's supposed to be apportioned. That means this, if I pay $10, he pays $10. The system they got now is like this. We're getting off subject, but remember we're there. Here's the way the system works now. I go into McDonald's and I order a hamburger, a Coke, and French fries, and he says that's $5 because I only make $10,000 a year. The next guy comes up, orders the same thing, and they say, how much do you make a year? Well, I make $30,000, okay? Yours is $8. Here comes a guy in a suit. He made $1 million. It's going to cost him $100, okay? It says that it has to be apportioned, or it's illegal. It's unlawful. So let's get back on track here.
Oh, it's relating healthcare though to the
Everything.
gun.
It is.
The gun.
But you got to remember, all this stuff that they're doing, you just don't find it in one piece. You find it in this little section, and then out of this title, and then out of this one, out of the Uniform Commercial Code. Understand this. If you look at our Tennessee statutes, you look at the United States Code, you look at the Uniform Commercial Code, it's private, copyrighted law. We don't have access to it. It's not ours, it's theirs. You go into a court, you've got an attorney, he has access to it. He's part of the Corporation Trust Company of America, apparently.
Maryland,
No,
Delaware.
Delaware. There we go. Okay. Here's the thing. They want more than anything else to take our guns away. They've tried and tried and tried, and they're going to keep trying. But I am encouraged with this. More and more people are buying guns. The more people we have wake up and buy more guns, that's one thing. We need more people that's willing to use them. I'm going to give you some examples that is bad. The guy down in Tellico Village. Drunk comes up, he's down there, he's sitting in a car. Guy gets out of his car, comes over, reaches through the window, and is choking him. What does the guy in the car do? Pulls out his gun, shots him, killed him. Problem solved. They arrested him and charged him with second-degree murder because the sheriff was running for re-election and it was right before the election. Had nothing to do with self-defense, had nothing to do with second-degree murder. It was politically motivated because it's right before an election. He's tough on crime. What crime? If somebody was to reach into my car and start choking me,
I'd shoot him.
I'd shoot him. They even said they admitted the guy's handprints and marks was on his throat. That should never go to trial. And it goes to trial this September, and it happened like over a year ago. It has cost him a fortune to defend himself. So what's the goal here? Was it justice? Or was it the almost $50,000 that he spent? Remember what I said, every criminal case, they take that and they bond it and they sell it. They securitize it and make money on it. When someone's arrested, there's a bid bond, a payment bond, and a performance bond. They've done made money on him 3 times, whether he posts bond or not. If he posts bonds and gets out, that's 4 times. So, we're talking about the Second Amendment here. We need to educate these people and let them know. We have a God-given right of self-defense. The Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights is to constrain them from abusing us. And they assume lord over us. They assume. Let me tell you about a court case. It's called the City of Minneapolis versus Rim. Here's a guy that applied for U.S. citizenship. He was denied. It said, to be a U.S. citizen, you have to apply, you have to give up your sovereignty, and you have to take an oath or affirmation to the United States. And the United States is the corporation, District of Columbia. It says this, he was denied because he didn't do that. And it further went to say, they said, well, if you've got a Social Security card, credit cards, a bank account, voter registration, that makes you a U.S. citizen. Wrong. That court case said all of this is not sufficient to make you a U.S. citizen. It's these three things. You apply, you deny your sovereignty, and you take an oath or affirmation to the corporation, and not otherwise. Remember, a U.S. citizen is a corporate citizen. Those are the people that's the District of Columbia and the territories. Here's another fact for you right quick. The reason they don't want you to have guns and they want to squelch information from you. Washington, D.C. is supposed to be 10 miles square. That's 100 square miles. Did you know that they sold Washington, D.C. to the private international bankers in 1944 via the Bretton Woods Agreement? Uh-oh. So the corporation sold Washington, D.C. to the private international bankers. Virginia got ticked off, and they took their part of the land back, and now it's like 68 square miles. But why did they sell the District of Columbia? The Act of 1871 created a new territory called the District of Columbia and made a new seat of corporate government after the Civil War. When the South walked out, they didn't have a quorum. And we're going to go in a minute to the root of the gun control. No quorum, so they had to operate as a corporation. When the war was over and they brought everything back in, they told the people coming back in, you've got to take a new allegiance to this corporation or you don't get to come back. That's when they rewrote the Constitution. So they rewrote it. It went from the Constitution for the United States of America to the Constitution of the United States. It's a corporation document. Now then, you ever seen the little book, The Racist Roots of Gun Control? After the Civil War, that's when they started gun control laws real bad because they didn't want blacks having guns. Why? They've just been through hell. They've been put in slavery, ripped from their families, raped, abused, sold and traded, and they didn't want retribution coming back on them. So from then on, all the way up through here, you've got the Gun Control Act of this and the Gun Control Act of that. It is not about sporting purposes. My Bill of Rights is not complicated. I have a right to. I hear these people. Sweet Jesus ain't for the death penalty. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. When you read Revelation, he's casting them into the lake of fire. Well, that's Jesus. Well, wait a minute now. You just said he's not for capital punishment. Well, he's not. That's the end times, okay? Let's look at Jesus on the cross. Got one guy says, oh, I'm sorry. I deserve to be here. He even told the other guy, hey, we deserve to be here, but this man's innocent. Jesus says, today you'll be with me in paradise. He didn't get him off the cross. He left him there to die. The Roman cross was the ultimate epitome of capital punishment. Romans knew how to put people to death and make them suffer. Yet Jesus accepted it. They didn't kill him. He bowed his head and gave up the ghost. And so your hands, Father, I commend my spirit. And these people tell you that capital punishment is not a deterrent. Here's my favorite question. When you're going down the interstate and you see a state trooper on the side of the road, what do you do? 10 out of 10 says, I either slow down, I take my foot off the accelerator, or I look at the speedometer. Well, that's a deterrent. That's a deterrent. If a criminal breaks in your house and you shoot him, how many people's going to break into your house after that?
No.
Okay. Up in East Knoxville, what do they call it? 5 Points or whatever that place is up there? They're having trouble with robbers. And several years ago, guy came in there, pulled out a gun, only this time the owner had enough. Blew the guy away. Graveyard dead, right there. He has not been robbed since. So why?
Words out.
Words out on the street.
If that's not a deterrent, what is? Okay? It is what it is. It is a deterrent. Okay? Time to wrap it up. Well, I have enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And here's what I'm going to do. Somebody needs to get with me and give me a 64 gigabyte USB key or one of those USB hard drives that's external. And I will transfer all that information. It takes about 2.5 hours. But I've got all the CFRs, all the United States Code, the DIC Act, the congressional records, all this stuff. I'll give it to you electronically so you can read and study. So when somebody's talking about something, you can pull it up and read it for yourself. And you go, you know, I heard you on C-SPAN and you said this. Well, here's what your congressional record says. Here's what the CFR says. You need to correct your actions. And we need to hammer these people on what they need to do. Thank you again for having me. I enjoyed it.